Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, the place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker and welcome to episode 169. Confidence means trusting your voice. Well, welcome back to our month dedicated to creating confidence and or regaining it if that's what we need to do. Since confidence is so crucial to our well-being and our relationships, I thought it would be good to unpack what truly comprises it. I think one of the biggest ways we display confidence is with our voice. How we speak assertively, calmly, and lovingly has everything to do with how we feel on the inside and what our truth is. In essence, our inner voice is what dictates our outer one. And if we really want to feel grounded and authentic, we need to become better listeners to what is going on inside of us. So if you want to have a stronger voice on the outside, you need to first heed the inner one. So what do I mean by your inner voice? There's a quote by Dr. Sarah Schewitz, and it says, "Intuition is that sneaking suspicion that you feel when something is not quite right, but you can't put your finger on why." End quote. You know what I mean. The niggling. Maybe like me, you get a chill sometimes. Maybe a strong emotional dream. A nudge. Perhaps anxiety, and you don't know why. Feeling scattered. Feeling foggy-headed. Maybe there's a tightness in your body, especially in your chest or your abdomen. Maybe there are thoughts that won't go away. They keep repeating themselves. Maybe you feel pulled in certain directions and you're not quite sure why. Like you don't have all the data yet. It doesn't make sense on the surface why you should be pulled that way, but you just are. And there's a difference, they say, between instinct and intuition. Instinct could be self-protective. And a lot of people also can get it confused with just plain excitement or a little bit of fear when something's new or you're getting ready to take a risk. And that's why a lot of times we won't listen to our intuition. Intuition is there to guide us in the right direction for what is best for us. It is said that maybe your instinct might keep you from taking a healthy risk, grabbing a great opportunity. So that inner voice, some of it is intuition. There are other aspects to our inner voice, though, that I want to talk about today, and they all matter. I don't think one is more important than the other. It's about listening to the inside of you, and for folks who grew up or have had any previous trauma or relationships where they had to kind of put themselves aside and just do and keep other people happy and work hard and take care of everyone, they may have a harder time listening to their voice on the inside. One of the ways is listening to the cues about your health. You know what I mean, the aches, the pains, maybe the tension in your body. What about the fatigue? What about the uneasiness? Maybe it's really hard to relax. What about illness and sickness? Because you're not taking care of yourself, perhaps, or you're not at peace with something on the inside and your body's making sure that you know that something's up. Emotionally, this can show up too. What about that anger? Maybe it's underneath your anxiety. It often is, especially for women. It's far more socially acceptable to have anxiety and be anxious than it is to feel, much less express, healthy anger. Now, I'm not talking about lashing out. I'm talking about expressing it vulnerably with an I statement to yourself first and then to a safe person. It's the feelings that won't go away no matter what we do, no matter how we blow them off and say, well, that's not logical. Everything's fine. But they don't go anywhere. They just keep quietly coming back. Another way our inner voice shows up is with inspiration and getting excited and feeling energized when you think or talk about something or someone or a situation. Sometimes without you even realizing it, but other people can see you light up. So think about what you've been wondering lately. Where does your mind wander off to? Or is it in the back of your mind saying, no, I don't think you want to do that. Maybe you shouldn't take that advice. Maybe you shouldn't change your position on something. And I think oftentimes what happens is it bumps up against our fear. You don't want to let others down maybe, or be a pain. Or God forbid, change your mind when it feels like it's too late to do so, like after the deposit is paid. To cancel the wedding and lose all that time and money. Not to mention the shame and embarrassment. So we can bump up against a fear of loss. And sometimes there will be loss. Sometimes there will have to be a different partner in the future. Sometimes there might have to be a healthier boss to work for. So a lot of times, if you struggle with avoidance, you probably aren't listening to your inner voice as much as maybe you could. Because your fear is getting in the way. And underneath that is the fear that you're not going to be okay. I'm not saying these are small issues. These are a big thing. To cancel a wedding, to leave a relationship, to leave a job, those are big decisions. But think for a moment, maybe the times where you wished you would have listened to those nudges, that anxiety, that illness, that pit in your stomach that you blew off or shoved aside or dismissed or minimized and went ahead and made a decision that ended up not being really great for you. Oh, I sit with this all the time with clients. And with hindsight, and now that they're so much healthier, they see that there were signs, there were red flags that they didn't want to see. Sometimes we see what we want to see. We want things to be okay, and we're afraid if we don't go with X, then Y and Z won't be all right. Or maybe there won't be a Y and Z. Some people deal with a lack mentality. They're afraid there won't be abundance. But intuition is trying to tell you something with anxiety often. The anxiety when you come across someone or something and you're not sure why. Maybe the dread of getting up for work. The avoidance of a situation you don't want to face. Here's the thing, it's often fuzzy and vague. And we usually only get the details when we look back. Boy, do we have the details then, don't we? And we realize when we didn't listen to our intuition. Don't worry about having all the details, perhaps. They'll fill in as you go. Just take a moment and stop and risk listening to your voice on the inside and take it seriously. Do some more research on the situation, on the person. Take your time. Don't feel pushed into something. Okay, so how do we do this? How do we listen to our voice on the inside that's trying to tell us that things just aren't okay, or that we should go in a different direction or take a risk and use our creativity, really step out there, use our gifts? Well, the first thing is take time to get quiet. Meditation and journaling are wonderful avenues to finding what's going on the inside of you, because you are quiet, you're away from all the stimuli, you're away from other people who may want to convince you otherwise, kind of thing. You're not as distracted. Maybe take a quiet walk or a drive. Just get centered, get back to you. Pay attention to your body. I think some guided breathing meditations that focus on relaxing your body can do amazing things. You know, it's when we have downtime like this is when our subconscious mind has time to put pieces of data together. We've talked about that before here. And that's when we can make sense of things. It's when we can also tap into our creativity. But I also think spending time with ourselves allows us to get things straight with us without anyone else around. The next thing we can do is look for the boundary issues that might be there. Maybe there's some people-pleasing going on. Maybe there's some fear you can't say no. Maybe others are overstepping even if they're just trying to be helpful. Maybe there's some manipulation happening. And maybe it's so subtle and the people are really nice and you don't see it. On the face of it, everything looks fine, quote unquote. But your gut is screaming, this is not okay. Maybe there's some guilt going on. So you really want to look at, are there boundary issues, both on their part and your own? Have you not said no? Have you been sucked into something or caught up in the whirlwind of maybe a new romance or a new job or friendship? Next, you want to honor your thoughts and your needs, and maybe even your wants and your values. Journal about them if you have to. Get solid on your why. Why do you want to do this? Why do you not want to do this? Make sure it's about you and not what other people want for you, even if it's because they love you or they want from you or both. Notice what you're feeling. Tap into that fear we talked about a minute ago. That's going to give you a lot of really great information if you can gut level with yourself and really admit some things. And that's really vulnerable and not easy to do. Hopefully you can run these vulnerable feelings by others who are open and kind and have good boundaries, and people who listen to their own truth and therefore will want you to listen to yours. Then write out or process out or talk out the reality of the possibility of just going with your gut. Like, what would that look like? Prep for the possible fallout that might happen. The outcomes you might have to deal with. The emotions that are going to come along with that. Fear and loss, fear and loss, fear and loss. That's what they usually are for us. And again, if you can get some healthy folks around you to run this by, that would be really helpful. And the biggest thing is giving yourself as much time as you possibly can take before you make a decision that you can't peel back. Other ways to just get grounded and get in touch with what's going on the inside is practicing in little ways first. This is what I usually have clients do. Like, just start paying attention during the day. Just check in like 4 or 5 times a day. Like, what do you want? Like, what are you hungry for, let's say? Start with little things, like a food that you might want. Maybe you take a turn into a certain store because you're just being guided and you don't know why. Or a trip somewhere. Trying a new thing. Buying something different. Every time you follow through, and hopefully it's a good thing, right? You like that food that you tried. You liked that new outfit. You're glad you picked up the phone to call your friend you haven't talked to in a while. Every time we do this, we create self-trust and self-confidence. We are telling ourselves that we are willing to not only listen to ourselves, but trust ourselves, that it's a good thing to do. Now, it's not always going to be perfect, but I just want you to play around with that, just in little benign ways where you're not going to have a big consequence by eating a certain food, let's say, or buying a new shirt. The other thing you can do throughout your day is do the no wonder mantras. No wonder I'm pissed. No wonder I'm happy. No wonder I'm sad, or starving, or exhausted, or content. You're telling yourself that you make sense and what you think, feel, and need makes sense. If you've been listening to the podcast, you know we talk about that theme in many different forms all the time because it's so important. When you do the no wonder mantras, try to do them in the mirror, do them in the car. I want you to hear yourself say your truth out loud. I also want you to say things such as, I don't want to go tomorrow. I'd rather stay home. Nothing wrong with her asking me to come. I'm just not up for it. Hear the detachment in that phrase? Nothing wrong with her asking me. But separately, I just want to stay home. I really need a vacation. It's been a while. I'm wondering what it would be like to have a different career. I don't like how that woman spoke to me today. It was not okay. I'm not sure I want to date this person anymore. I feel really uneasy about the situation with my coworker. I want to try something new and different. Statements such as that, or come up with your own. Just keep practicing it. Write them down. Say them out loud. Tell a friend. Every time we do this, our subconscious takes it in, and two things happen. We create self-trust like we just talked about, but I tell you what, we create inner peace when we do that too. Your body's going to calm down once you sit in your truth. You're going to feel more glued together, less scattered, less anxious. You'll be anxious about setting the boundary by following through, but you won't have that can't put your finger on it type of anxiety. Because listening to your inner voice creates not only self-trust, but I believe it also creates alignment with who you really are at the core, and or maybe who you're becoming. It all should make sense, like your values, your passions, your quirks, your competencies and your gifts, and your past experiences, good and bad, that have shaped you thus far. You really shouldn't have contradictory things going on. Not really, not value-based contradictions. If you do, then you might want to do some more values work. I think the more solid you begin to feel over time as you commit to being authentic, you're going to find yourself perhaps being more vocal as well. Being able to say no in a healthy way to what you don't want right now, saying yes to some great but scary stuff for your life, that's going to help you stretch and grow and really live fully. Because whenever we go against ourselves and don't listen to ourselves, we lose faith in ourselves. Our confidence decreases. We become vulnerable to manipulation, I think. We fall into people-pleasing, bouts of depression, anxiety, and possibly illness. In other words, it's not worth it. So as you listen to this today, where did you find yourself? Did you say to yourself, oh, I have no problem listening to what I want and think and need and feel, and I have no problem telling anyone? Or did you take note that perhaps you historically have allowed fear to get in the way of you feeling something in your gut and just trusting it across the board, no questions asked, and didn't give in to fear? Fear of, number one, being wrong, right? Number two, letting someone else down, changing things, risking conflict, risking failure, and risking abandonment. Because as you look over your life, were there moments where if you had hindsight in the moment, you might not have pulled the trigger on something? Maybe you would have had the courage to walk away, or to say no, or to set a boundary, or to do a good thing for yourself, take a risk, start a business, go back to school, quit your job, find a new career, move across the country, go do some crazy stuff. So when we look back, we often notice that we didn't listen to the voice on the inside that said, that's not who you really are, don't do it. Or, that's who you really are, go do it, go do it, go do it. And we didn't listen. And we missed opportunities. We've cost ourselves maybe advancement in our careers. Maybe creative endeavors didn't happen. It is amazing how different our lives could be if we created enough self-trust and let that be our guidance as opposed to what other people are encouraging us to think, feel, need, and do. In order to use our voice on the outside and say, no, I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me, or I would like this, or I don't like that, we have to believe ourselves first. And we have to know why we believe ourselves. We have to know what our values are. We have to know what we believe. We have to know where we stand on things. We have to have good boundaries, both externally with other people and be able to say no and yes and be able to stand firm and follow through, but also internal boundaries, the self-discipline. To say no to ourselves when something looks really good on the surface, but for some reason it doesn't feel right. And we have to have good detachment along with that boundary work to be able to let go of what other people might think and feel when we say no, or we go take a risk, or we do something fun, or we let them down. We have to be able to detach and allow them to be where they are, but not allow that to determine where we're going to be or where we are going. So today we talked about how in order to be more confident and use our voice out there, to ask for what we need, to express our thoughts, our opinions, and our feelings, and to assert ourselves when necessary, that we need to listen and maybe heed the quiet voice on the inside that is trying to tell us something. Whether it's an excited nudge to try something new or cool, or that stomach twist when something looks fine on the surface, but it isn't going to be a good thing. Our inner voice is there to guide us to the good stuff and hopefully steer us away from what isn't. Thank you for joining me today. May you listen to yourself this week and allow those in your life to listen to their own inner voice as well. Find one good thing in people this week. Be sure to check the show notes at ownitpowercast.com. Sign up and get the newsletter each Tuesday. That's where the bonus downloads are. All right, so pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you could begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.